rise into fame. In every podcast, they turn up the heat. On your radio dial, they're the dream team. Boys with the heat, they burn through the night. Sports scores and more, breaking down the game. From city to city, they rule the airwaves. Bring in the fire, the heat never fades. Boys with the heat, they burn through the night. Sports scores and more, they're always right. From city to city, they rule the airwaves. Bring in the fire, they're the legends and the brave. So turn it up, let it blast through the street. Charles P on the mic, and that guy bring the heat.
Oh, I lost us.
Welcome, Tim. Glad to have you on. Appreciate you coming here today.
Dude, it was totally worth it just to hear the intro song. That's awesome.
Charles always says it's like brings him back to like watching Blue Mountain State on like Spike TV or something.
Yeah, bring in the heat. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm ready.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. The coffee didn't wake us up. The intro definitely hits.
Well,
I
he's
haven't had
used to
any
that
coffee,
hotel
so
coffee.
I'll be caffeinating in real time right here. So.
He's used to doing podcasts at the hotel too. I used to work on the road before I got back to the studio. Half of my podcast episodes were sitting in a hotel room, so I know how it is. It's fun.
Yeah, this is probably more motel, but
Yeah. I hear you.
Either way.
I hear you. I've been there.
It's comfortable with clean sheets. It's all that matters.
Yeah, that's
It's,
true.
I'm kidding.
So we have former MLB pitcher here, Tim Dillard, along with current Bally Sports commentator, color commentator, and pregame and
Postgame. Yeah.
So give our fans a little insight, because during the COVID shutdown is when you decided the next path of your future what had started, according to the internet anyways.
Yeah.
What led to that?
Yeah, BC played baseball for 18 seasons in some capacity, a couple times in the big leagues, maybe a lot in the minor leagues.
With
Played in
fantastic
Mexico.
stats. by
Yeah.
the way. You killed
in-
it down there.
Yeah, Venezuela. I'd play baseball anywhere, especially for
Yeah.
a paycheck. Sometimes that helps.
Yeah,
Probably
yeah.
should have been done like 10 years before, but here we are. And during 2020, they shut down minor league baseball completely.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I was in spring training with the Rangers. They called us in one day. We're all in like the batting cage area. There's probably, goodness, if you talk about staff and players, like 300 people.
Yeah.
And they just said, hey, everything's canceled. You can go home. And we're all just standing there like, we never heard of anything like this.
No.
So
Yeah.
went home. I was actually at my home in Nashville for spring. And that's about the first time that's ever happened.
Yeah.
I'd always been playing baseball ever since I was a kid. I was always somewhere else playing baseball during spring.
Yeah.
So it's a weird feeling sitting in the driveway. You're forced to get to know your neighbors.
Yeah, unfortunately.
I had neighbors for 15 years. Never, I don't know their last name.
Yeah.
That was good. But yeah, so there was a few teams across the world playing baseball besides the big leagues. One of them was the Milwaukee Milkmen in Franklin, Wisconsin. And I messaged them over their internet, their website.
Yeah.
Didn't hear anything for a month. And finally they reached back and they were like, hey, do you want to play baseball? I was like, yeah. I just messaged, hey, my name's Tim Dillard. I'm a right-handed pitcher if you need an arm. So they brought me in. I played there for a month. We ended up winning a
Championship. Yeah.
yeah.
That's,
But while I was there, one of the things you would do in between starts, I was a starting pitcher at the time.
Yeah.
And to cut down on personnel, they didn't hire bat boys during COVID. So they were like, if you're not pitching that day, go be the bat boy. So I was like the best bat boy ever. I'm not going to lie. I was on
Hold
top
up
of
for
it.
it,
You
yeah.
drop your bat. Guess what? This guy's here to pick it up. And anyway, the Brewers contacted me and said, hey, according to your social media, you're in Wisconsin. Is that correct? And I was like, yeah. And they said, okay, we want you to come over and fill in for Bill Schroeder, fill in for Rock, and do some baseball games on TV. I was like, what? I can't believe this. So I asked my manager if I could skip a game and go do that. But it was my turn to bat boy.
Oh man, you're way in the scenario
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I bribed one of my teammates a little bit to say, man, hey, will you cover my duties on bat boy? And then I drove across town and did 2 games with Matt LePay in the Brewers TV booth. And that was the start of it. I went back, won the championship, went home. 2021, right before spring training, I was going back. Things got back to normal, and I was going to go back to spring training with the Rangers. And the Brewers called probably, I don't know, maybe a week or two before the season started. And they were like, "Hey, if you retire right now, we will put you on TV for Bally Sports." And my wife said yes.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Yeah, I was like, sure. Yeah, she was like, please just stop playing baseball. And that was really it. And anyway, I don't know. I rolled off the couch to go play for the Milkmen at the time. I hadn't been really working out the last like month or 2 months. My wife couldn't understand why I was going to go play independent ball in Wisconsin, because you don't get paid a lot doing that. But I don't know. I felt this thing saying, just go do it. Just go do it. And anyway, that's the long-winded explanation of how I got to this point.
On a podcast, we love the long-winded. Yeah, we love the long-winded explanations. The more stories, the better. Pre-show, we were chatting. That's a fantastic story. And it's about exactly how I thought it would go. I literally woke up and decided this was the shoes I was putting on and walked in a direction, and now here I am. Yes. And it seems like those stories work out for the better more often than not. A lot of the times when you put too much into it, you allow fear to overtake your information. And then that fear overtaking the information sometimes stops you from moving forward. So just going out and doing it is fantastic, and trusting yourself and the ability. I was reading, I'm not going to lie, I feel bad. I didn't even know the Milkmen were a thing. But as I was reading up on you, I found them, and then you had won that championship. What was that championship run like in this style of baseball? Because you've been with champions often, whether it be college or high school. You were doing fantastic things, which we'll talk about moving forward. You come from a baseball family, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know. Ever since I could remember anything, it was about baseball, right?
Yeah.
My dad played in the big leagues before I was born. There's baseball stuff everywhere. With the Milkmen, though, they were going to win the championship regardless. I just happened to show up and tried not to screw it up, which is kind of my whole baseball career. I was like, I just don't want to be the one that screws it up.
And in baseball, so I'm a fantastic high school athlete. That's what we'll say. And then I chose to join the military, and I went off on that route. And then they sent me home with a thank you letter, and I've been relaxing ever since. But baseball to me was always the most difficult sport, because as much as I wanted to rely on anyone else, most of the time that sport came down to me making my individual play to help the team. Now, baseball being in your family, was there any other sports that caught your eye and then you just ended up settling on baseball, or was it just baseball from start to finish?
Sure. I got two older brothers, and really it goes back to my dad. My dad retired from playing in 1982 and got out immediately. He was with the White Sox, immediately started coaching or managing the rookie ball team in the Gulf Coast League in Sarasota, Florida. The White Sox were like, hey, retire. We want you to get into coaching. My dad always had a great name in the game. He's a student of the game. So, yeah, he got right into coaching these young guys. So we had to move. I don't even know where we were living, Chicago maybe.
Yeah.
And so we go to move, and I say I was not born. I was on my way to being born. And
I was around. I was somewhere. Yeah.
And there's a story my mom loves to tell where they're going around looking for houses. And I love this house. This house. We should do this house. We should do this house. I love this house. This I love the rooms. I love the layout. And my dad was like, let's get this house. And my mom could not stand it. It was a really small house, especially for three boys that are growing. And she didn't like it at all. It was small, but the backyard was completely flat and had grass. And it was big, a couple acres. And it was surrounded by orange trees. And in my dad's mind, going around looking at these houses, he could see this is where these kids are going to get an education. These are where the kids are going to go out and learn how to play every sport on planet Earth. Yeah. And sure enough, he went out. She understands now, but my dad wanted to make this yard as like a safe haven for all the neighborhood kids to come and play sports. And he ended up building a small like minor league baseball field. Little league baseball field in the backyard. I had a basketball goal out in left field. It was like playing against sports at my house. My dad wanted us to be outside. if you guys want to play football, here's some footballs. I don't care if you throw a frisbee. Like, you're going to be outside. And that's what it was. My whole childhood was wake up and forced to eat Fruit Loops or whatever, cornflakes, and then go outside. And you can't come in until you're like extremely exhausted.
Yeah, didn't have those screens that we have today. And
no screens. And people would come. It was like Field of Dreams. Like, all the kids in the neighborhood would come, and we would play all sorts of stuff, capture the flag. We would, I don't know, that was it. And we all just, that was all we ever knew, was going out and playing sports. And as we got older, we ended up moving to Mississippi. I went to the same high school as my mom and dad. They were high school sweethearts there. So I had some of the same teachers. Not great, probably not the best thing, but.
My grandma was a teacher in high school and our 8th grade. And I graduated 7th grade and she retired. And the ongoing story behind that is she didn't want to ruin our relationship.
See that? You were cheating in her class? Like, that's, you can do it Thanksgiving.
Yeah, she heard enough about me coming up that she's, I love my grandson too much.
Grandma, great test the other day.
Boy.
Yeah, she still had all her connections though, so she stayed well within the loop. Sure. Yeah. I am still friends with the English teacher that took over her position though. Was Mrs. White, and then went to Weedy Gardner, and then went Weedy Gardner White, and I think it's back to White. Yeah.
I think we should devote the rest of the podcast to that. That sounds like a saga.
Heck of a story there, Charles.
I wish it was, but it's a small town of Manistee in Michigan, so it's just your everyday small town story.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I mean. That was the same high school we went to. It was just a super small high school.
So now, don't help me with this. One of the things I love doing is trying to pronounce names and butchering them terribly. Okay, the community college that you went to, Itamba?
That's it, Itawamba. Yep.
Itawamba? What was...
Wow.
In lieu of me looking things up and completely ruining it for myself, because I don't go to Paris today because I've Googled it. I could close my eyes. I see what I'm going to see looking right at it. That's fine. What were the mascots in Itawamba?
Itawamba Indians. I
Indians.
think they still are. Yeah, it was a Native American tribe in the area for a long time, and I think there's still a presence there. It's in northeast Mississippi. It's only about 30 minutes from where I went to high school and where my parents live.
Yeah.
But the decision to do that kind of came down. So I was drafted by the Brewers in 2001 as a catcher. I was always a catcher. When I was a kid, my brother wanted to be a pitcher, and he was like, hey, go squat down there. And so, I don't know. I liked being a catcher for a second. Really liked Craig Biggio, Yogi Berra, Carlton Fisk. Instantly became some of my favorites. And my dad told me probably when I was 5, he said the fastest way to the big leagues is a switch hitting catcher. And for whatever reason, I thought that's what I want to be. So started switch hitting, abandoned that in high school. But I ended up hurting my left shoulder, not my throwing shoulder, but my left shoulder swinging. After a high school baseball game, I was swinging for some scouts. There was a Royals scout there, a Brewers scout. There might have been an Expos scout, if you remember that team. Yeah. And anyway, I was, taking batting practice at 10 o'clock at night. My dad was throwing to me. They just gave me a wooden bat that was in the back of this rental car. It was a Buick LeSabre. I remember that. No batting gloves, no pine tar, no anything. I just started hitting rockets all over the field. Some of them were going over the fence, and the whole time these scouts were like, nobody's scouting you? And I was like, no. And then my dad threw one up and in, and I went to swing, crushed it, and my left shoulder slipped out of socket.
Yeah.
Didn't think much of it. Tried to hit a few more, and after about 5 or 10 more, I just was like, all right, I'm done. I'm tired. Yeah. And anyway, what I learned was that was the beginning of something serious.
Significant.
And went to a few doctors, tried to rehab it. They used to give me Celebrex, which is now, you can't take that anymore. Took some Vioxx. There's lawsuits about that somewhere, I'm sure. And it just wasn't getting healthy. I went to, and that's one of the reasons I didn't go. I was going to go to Ole Miss, where my dad went. My dad took him to like the 72 College World Series, 73.
Yeah, I'm not going to lie, Tim. I had a really good time researching you and your family. Yeah, it's just your
strange.
Dad and your brothers.
There's some highlights in there.
Oh, yeah.
The world is a much better place because of your family. Let me tell you that, man. It's been a pleasure
we had fun.
Getting to know you.
It was awesome.
That's a super nice thing to say. Yeah, my dad took over at shortstop for Archie Manning. at Ole Miss. How about that? That's pretty strange. So he's royalty there in a way. He got like a banner on the wall.
Yeah, you got your jersey retired for Nashville too. So this is a
they'll
family of baseball
I'll just
royalty.
throw those
here.
suckers up anywhere.
Yeah, we wish.
With stats like yours. Okay, we'll get to that. I don't mean to interrupt. Keep going.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm not even sure where I'm at. Oh yeah, so I went over to Ole Miss to do visits in like 2001, and Mike Bianco was there. I think he'd just been there a couple years, or maybe 1 year. I'm not sure. I think he's still there. Actually, 20 odd years later. And anyway, my first visit, they were like, "Dude, you're going to do it all. You're going to catch. You're going to pitch. You're our guy." I was like, "Oh, great." And then the second visit, they're like, "We really like you as a pitcher." I'd only started pitching my junior year, and I only did that because I caught everybody, and I was like, "We're going to lose every game." So I was like, I'll pitch, which I was very raw, but I was just like, I wanted to win. And so I just, I don't know, love to compete. And pitching, you can do that probably a little bit more than you can as a catcher when it comes to that competitive edge.
Yeah.
And anyway, they're like,
I mean,
we
it's
like
one
you
of
as a
the
pitcher.
elite positions in sports.
Yeah, it's a tough gig in a lot of ways. And that's why they get paid the big bucks. But they were like, "Yeah, you're only going to pitch like our weekend games. You're not going to catch." And I was like, "Wow, I really don't like the sound of that." And then the third time I went and visited, they were like, "Oh, we're just going to redshirt you." And I was like, "What do you mean? I'm just not going to play?" No, you're going to sit there and you're going to learn our system. And I was like, I'd never heard this kind of language before.
Yeah.
I was like, I remember thinking your system. And my dad and I are sitting in Bianco's office. And I was like, your system. I was like, did you invent baseball?
Yeah.
And my dad was like, because when it came to baseball, I was very arrogant. A lot of players are. I was probably teetering on the edge of probably not being nice about it at that point. But you have to have this arrogance.
You have to be.
know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're wishy-washy. Do I know how to do this or not? Do I have a chance to play in the big leagues or not? But anyway, my dad just kind of put his head down, and Bianco was like, "No," and I was like, "Then I know your system." To me, I grew up in professional baseball. My dad was a professional coach for my whole life. I see how they do it in the big leagues or in the minor leagues. And the minor leagues does it like the big leagues. And the big leagues does it because it has 150 years of trying to get it right. Yeah. So I'm going, if you're not at the college level doing what they're doing, like how you run practices and stuff, like you have your own system and it's not that, then that can't be good. Why do you think your way's better? Anyway.
Yeah.
They really thought I was going to sign with them, and I was like, no shot. Went to junior college. You can go for 1 year and then get drafted. And if you go to a 4-year college, you got to stay 3 years. So this was a strategic moment for me of going, I just want to play professional. Yeah. I want to get my foot in the door, and that's what I did.
So it's MLB's version of one and done.
Yeah.
Okay,
cool. A lot of people scouts know this. I see scouts all the time. Saw Jeff Cirillo the other day in wherever we were just at, Chicago. And they know this stuff. You can find some great talent in the junior college sector, the community college, because they only have to go 1 year. Their path, they want to be in pro ball as quickly as possible. And that was me. Yeah. But I ended up having shoulder surgery on that left shoulder. Dr. Andrews did it in Birmingham. If you remember Dr. Andrews, I know he pioneered a lot, so he pushed to the side. I don't know if he's retired, but dude, he did Bo Jackson's hip surgery, so he's the elite of the elite. And anyway, so he fixed my shoulder. He put a couple of stitches in my labrum. So my second year of junior college, I hit my stride. I was catching really good. I was hitting really good, but I was the closer. So we'd play these 2 7-inning double headers every time we played. And the first game I would catch 7 innings or 6 innings, and then I'd come in and close the game. And then I'd catch 6 innings of the next game, and if they needed me, I'd come in and close the game. And as the junior college season went on in 2000, I guess this was 2000, some of the guys started getting hurt. So suddenly they were like, hey, can you start some of these games? So I would catch 7 innings, and then the next game I would pitch 7 innings. And by that time, there were other scouts interested. There was about 4 or 5 scouts following me around everywhere. We went to the Junior College World Series in Millington, Tennessee. We ended up losing out. And right after that, had to call some scouts because the draft was about to happen. And the Brewers had the rights to me. They drafted me in 2001 as a catcher, and then they drafted me 2002 as a catcher. Again, really long story. But this just shows the time of life.
Perfect story. Yeah.
We had 24 hours assigned me. And I had to call the phone number from a landline, right? Nobody really had a cell phone.
No, there was no time.
So I got home, met my parents' house, had to call this scout. He's now like top 2 or 3 in the Brewers organization still, Doug Reynolds in the scouting department. And he comes to my house and was like, we negotiated back and forth, but their big thing is we think we want you to be a pitcher. And that took a lot because I took a lot of pride in my catching.
Yeah.
I was a bigger guy, which you don't see a ton of big catchers, but there's Mike Piazza, Javi Lopez, Charles Johnson. Those were the guys that I was like, man, these I could fit right in.
Yeah.
But they thought I would have a longer career as a pitcher. And 18 years later, I guess they were right. Never missed a game due to injury. Always stayed healthy. Had some injuries, but didn't cost me going out and pitching.
Right, an opportunity.
In opportunities. But yeah, I don't know. They saw something early on that maybe I didn't see, because if it was up to me, I'd still have the shin guards on, man.
Yeah. So, fantastic story. So now, when you left baseball, you were holding Nashville Sounds AAA records.
Oh, yeah.
Wins, games pitched, innings pitched, and strikeouts. I mute myself there, by the way. Now, are these something that you... records are dear to anyone who plays any type of sport. Is this something, as time goes on, that you pay attention to? Is there a name that comes across your desk and somebody goes, hey, man, this guy might get close? Has that come up yet, or are we still a few moons away from those conversations?
Oh, yeah. So 2007 was my first year in AAA, and the Brewers AAA team was in Nashville. And, yeah, I don't think any player sets out. Their goal in professional baseball is not to play a ton of years in the minor leagues. It's just it's nobody's goal.
Okay,
You ask any minor leaguer, what's your goal?
Yeah.
You're going to hear, I want 10 years in the show. That's the correct answer. It's the only correct answer.
It's the only answer.
It's not, honestly, it's not, I just want to be an all-star. It's, I want to win a World Series. That's part of it. You want to play 10 years in the show.
A dream is the
dream.
World Series.
That's the dream. Every
the
time
goal is the 10-year.
You guys were talking before we were on air about going to a Timber Rattlers game. Every single one of the guys wants 10 years in the show.
In the show.
Yeah.
In the show, baby. And that was my goal. And you don't have control over that. I think the hard part is you don't really get to see this, but the hard part is you have zero control over that. You can be a great player and not get a chance. I've had a slew of teammates that I think could have easily been in the big leagues that never got their shot. And I've seen guys that probably should never sniff AA get a shot in the big leagues.
So Charles, we brought this up a long time ago. Charles and I both feel very strongly about the fact that baseball has to be the hardest sport, professional sport, to break through to break into the majors, to break into the starting lineup, just to see the field.
A lot of people see, especially say Wisconsin, you'll see the Ryan Brauns, you'll see the JJ Hardy, Ricky Weeks. Like you just knew these guys were good. Jackson Churio.
Yeah.
And you can name some here and there, but those are the elite of the elite. And not to say that there's players that won't develop these kind of skills, but there's only one Mike Trout and there's only one Bryce Harper, and you knew at age 16 how good they were.
Yeah.
And that's not every player. That's the 1%. And then there's
the anomalies.
Thousands of other guys that want to break in, and it's so hard to do that. And like I said, the hard part is you have no control. You can do everything right. You can do everything right. Pro ball does not care. You can go out there, especially as a pitcher, you toe the rubber, you know the scouting report, you know who's in the box, you know your stuff, you're on the same page with your catcher, the umpire has the best zone ever, the wind's blowing in, and you can throw the perfect pitch, locate it exactly where you want, and some dude closes his eyes, sticks the bat out there, it breaks, the ball dumps in, and 2 runs are in, and there goes your ERA.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, what? And you, as a player, you are conditioned to make adjustments. That is, everybody on TV is making adjustments, and the best ones make them the fastest.
Yeah.
In the big leagues, those dudes are making adjustments from like second to second, at bat to at bat. In the minor leagues, you'll see guys make adjustments from maybe the start of the game to the end of the game, maybe the next day. As the season goes, you see these adjustments. And I'm telling you, right when that happens and something doesn't go your way, you're like, what'd I do wrong? And so it's this back and forth with yourself of, where's the change? What do I need to make? And sometimes there is no change. Sometimes you just have to get through it. And it's really tough because when you don't have control over it, you think you're not doing well. If you're stuck in AAA for 10 or 12 years like I was, you're like, what do I need to do to get to the big leagues? And if you talk to 10 different pitching coaches, they'll give you 10 different
10 different answers.
10 different answers. And so you're like, what do I really do? And that's why you see these guys going to train to throw 100, because if you throw 100, you'll stand out right away. And then they get in the pro ball and then suddenly they're injured. You'll see a knee blowout. You'll see a shoulder blowout, an elbow, because it's
Tommy John's has been coming up a lot lately.
It's just not sustainable, but it'll put you on the map. So it's risk reward in that regard. But my best ability was just availability. I always wanted the baseball.
Yeah.
Every coach I've ever had, every teammate, hopefully, would say, Dillard, he was an okay teammate, sure. Hopefully they say good teammate.
Yeah.
But that dude just wanted the baseball. I was like, just put this ball in my hand and let me pitch. That's all I ever wanted to do. I couldn't really do anything else in life. And I'm probably proving that on broadcast, but just put the ball in my hand.
Not. You're a great storyteller, for one. And two, I do vaguely remember you had one season with one at bat and one hit. You batted 1,000 that season.
Yeah. 2008. Yeah. Got called up. I was in the bullpen that year.
Yeah.
And I think the reason I got the at bat is because they brought me in a close situation and I blew it. So they were like,
you had to finish the game, so you had to have an at bat.
Great job. Now you have to go hit. And I was like, oh. And I forgot who was pitching, but the first pitch, I swung through it. I was like, I'm swinging, dude. This is what it's like. You ever wonder what it's like when a pitcher gets in the box? Give me the bat. I just want to swing. Which is strange because you see these rookies go to the big leagues now, and they're just like, they're working counts. I'm like, nope, not for me. Like, I just want to swing.
Yeah, seeing Jackson do that a few weeks in really surprised me. I understood the contract so much more.
Yeah, couldn't wait to swing early on, and now he's taking his walks and being patient. I'm telling you, it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
I got in there, swung through a fastball, and I thought, oh, that's probably 97. I turned around and looked at the little ribbon board where it puts the miles per hour. It was like 90. And my first thought was, how does anybody ever get a hit? Then the next pitch was a changeup. This was against the Braves in Milwaukee. And I did a check swing on this ball. It was low, and I dumped it over the first baseman's head. It was Mark Teixeira. And anyway, I was like, I didn't even see where it went. I was like, oh, and I ran it out. And I'm sitting there, holy cow, I made it to first base. And Mark Teixeira was like, hey, is that your first hit? I was like, yeah, my first at bat too. And he's like, wow. He's like, dude, congratulations, man. That's awesome. And I was like, great. Thanks, Mark Teixeira. I was like, I wish I'd have seen it.
Yeah.
So I have a picture somewhere of me and him just laughing. I forgot what happened after that. I blacked out. But
of course, you've got to.
Yeah,
it's got to be so rewarding. That's in sports. That's the hardest thing, is to get that as your first at bat. I mean, just to hit the baseball in general. Because, like you said, at best, most people close their eyes and swing when they're beat, and good things tend to happen from time to time.
Yeah.
It's been fantastic.
Miracles do happen, Charles.
Yeah.
They do happen.
You hear nowadays, it's like some of the older players, the guys that maybe have just gotten out of the game, and they're very forthcoming. They're like, it may be harder now to hit than any other time in baseball. Like, guys are collectively are throwing harder.
Way harder.
Stuff is just nastier.
What's the MLB average right now? Like 96, 97, I think? I mean, because growing up, for me, it was like 92 to 94, but it feels like it's so much more now.
Yeah, when I was coming up, if you threw low 90s, that was one thing. Yeah. But the next jump up, and they would talk to hitters, and they would look at numbers and stuff. If you threw 90, 93, that was one thing. But if you were throwing 93, 95, that played. Like, you could go and pitch in parts of the zone that you couldn't if you were throwing 91, 93. That was, when my velocity went up a couple of times, especially when I was in the bullpen. If I was a starter, I would sit mostly low 90s. Yeah. But I would also throw 115 pitches, and I'd throw 7 innings or 8 innings.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which was important to me going deep in the ball game. And then out of the bullpen,
falling away from that. Nowadays,
100%.
If you make it to 5 innings, everyone's that's really good.
Yeah,
and I'm like,
hoist this guy up.
And I'm like, wait a minute, 7 innings is where I want you to be, because I want my setup to come in for my closer. I don't want to try and walk anything else.
Well, that goes back to all those elite arms. All those elite arms in the bullpen they're so good. So it's like, why waste any time? And if you're going 3rd time through the order, or possibly 4th time through the order, it's like, the percentages go up, or something might happen. So that's their reasoning behind it. We have a chance to win, so let's throw these bullpen arms out there. But I wish they would go back to it. The first organization that starts preaching, we want our guys to go 7 innings. in about 5 years, we'll be one of the best teams on planet Earth. And the reason behind it is because they'll have the freshest bullpen, and they'll have a plethora of guys that, number one, know how to pitch. This is the side effect of throwing a lot of innings. You can't get to the 7th inning unless you know how to pitch.
Yeah.
You may get, you just have to know that. You may have the best stuff in the world, but if you don't know how to pitch, you're not going to get to the 7th inning. And that should be the goal. That should be the goal for lower minor leagues. They should be like preaching that big time.
I don't know how we talked to Rob. We had Rob Semerato on. He's been trying to make a comeback in Major League Baseball for a minute. He's the guy that throws like 100 miles an hour from. He was drafted around the same time you were. Anyway, he said that he basically said that back then they threw 88, 90 miles an hour. It wasn't the matter of fact that they weren't throwing as hard. He goes, they weren't trying to throw the movement. They weren't throwing a 12-6 curve, and there wasn't 18 to 20 inches coming off the top of the ball from the bottom of the zone to the top of the zone, or zone to the top to the bottom, the left to the right. He said the movement, and they're trying to throw a slider 3 miles an hour. That really affects the arm, the shoulder, like Tommy John's, like Charles said. All these guys are trying to throw the ball with so much movement now that it's affecting their arm.
If you have 25 bullpen arms in your organization and you want them to all max effort. And then when one gets hurt, you just pull up another one. And when that one gets hurt, you just pull up another one. There's a great, y'all ever watch, is it Foul Territory? That's on Twitter.
I'll have to look it up.
Scott Braun, Eric Kratz, AJ Brzezinski.
Oh, yeah.
There's a bunch of guys, I think, that they come in and do different stuff. But they had Dr. Meister, who's out of Arlington, and he is the new whoever, Dr. Andrews or whoever that's doing all the surgeries. Yeah, he's doing everybody's. Yeah. And he goes into detail a lot of why this is all happening. He goes into, it has something to do with the pitch clock. It has something to do with how they're training. It's something to do with usage, and it's something to do with grips. And he's doing his own research as well. Yes. On this new sweeper pitch that's injuring everybody. Why it injures them. And I'm telling you, he talks for maybe, I don't know, I don't know how long the interview was, but probably in about 5 minutes, he completely diagnoses everything. But the problem is, I don't think organizations care that much, and MLB doesn't care that much. There was a study. I used to grab the newspaper at every hotel on road trips, if you remember newspapers.
You
didn't know this was going to be a throwback analog.
Oh, that's fine. I'm 36. He's almost 40. We right there with you.
I just has it right in his family still.
Yeah. I remember grabbing the newspaper, and it was, I guess this year's an Olympics year, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Is it? Yeah. I feel like this should already be on. Anyway,
first match was yesterday, actually. First match of the Olympics. Yep. USA got smacked by France 3-0. I guess we still play soccer. I didn't know that was.
Oh, soccer. Yeah. I guess I should. Yeah. I'll keep in touch because I don't know. It's the Olympics, right? You kind of got to keep an eye on it.
Hashtag USA.
Yeah. So I remember one of the newspapers. I pull it up and I'm reading through there, and there was an article about Olympic athletes, and it was they polled when they get them all together. There's hundreds of them, maybe thousands. And so they polled all of them, and they said, if we gave you a drug that was legal, that would guarantee you a gold medal, but it would kill you in 5 years, would you take it? And it was a staggering number of people that said, yes, I would take it to win a gold medal. Wow. Now, that's probably more the extreme.
Yeah.
But if you weed out some of the other stuff, you're looking at pitchers that are going full throttle at training how they throw their pitches, and now you're putting them on the clock, and you're having them surrounded by coaches in an organization that's, yes, you're doing this the right way, keep going. Then you see guys getting blown out. So there's multiple problems on multiple areas, and honestly, I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. But to me, if I was pitching right now, I'd probably have a lot of innings. Just filling in. That was actually my career, probably my last 5 years. I should have been done, but when somebody gets hurt, you got to have somebody fill in, and so that was my role.
That's fantastic.
It's funny that you played the battery role, though. You came in, caught the game, and then they called you in to be the closer to shut the lights out.
Yeah. Yeah, somebody would go visit the mound. The coach would go visit the mound in college, and I would get a ball and start throwing it with the third baseman, which I thought was weird, but just in case I didn't have enough strong throws, like maybe I didn't have to try to throw anybody out stealing, I was just throwing it back to the pitcher.
Yeah.
They wanted to make sure I was nice, and I got the eye black on, and I'm throwing, then I take the gear off and jump on the bump, throw some strikes, and Yeah, I wanted to be right-handed Randy Johnson, man. I was like, I had a lower 3/4 slot, and I just tried to throw it right on their
just going to
knuckles.
ask you, who did you mirror your throwing? Who was those players that you envisioned yourself, and Randy Johnson being one of them?
I was
Great guy.
Yeah. I wish I was left-handed. I'd probably still be pitching. No, I was probably scarred. Because I had an older brother, I was always playing up a level or 2 levels. When I was 5, I was playing against 7 and 8-year-olds. When I was 8, I'm playing against 10 and 11-year-olds. So I always thought I was really bad. I would. I remember telling my dad, I'm like, man, I'm just not that good at baseball. But what he was saying is, here's an 8-year-old that can hang with these 11-year-olds. Yeah. And so that was the trend. And I think I was maybe 9. And I faced this pitcher that was really good. He was throwing really hard for the time.
Yeah.
And he threw every single pitch inside. And I hated that. And it would haunt my dreams. And I was probably scarred for life. I was like, this guy dominated the inside part of the zone. And so fast forward when I was 16, 7 years later, when I'm 16, I'm in high school. And I was like, hey, I'm going to pitch. Why not?
Yeah. Yeah.
I just wanted to wreak havoc on a right-handed batter. That's all I wanted to do. I wanted them to pick their thumbs up off the ground and just get them so frustrated that they didn't even want to swing. Yeah. Almost like you have what's coming. Here it is.
Yeah.
And if you get really good at throwing one pitch in one spot and you can get away with it, that's when you hear the expression from pitchers, you roll out of bed and hit your spot. I wanted to roll out of bed and throw a 2-seamer inside on a righty. That's what I wanted to do. And I did that my junior year of high school, senior year of high school, did it in college, scrolled into pro ball, and it would work sometimes. And then you find out that these guys can actually hit. And then that's when you start making the adjustments. But that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to, pound the zone on right-handed batters.
That's fantastic. So pitching on the inside at times is dangerous. And I've always, now from a personal standpoint, I had those same nightmares you had. Mine just ended way sooner than yours.
Yeah.
So moving forward in my adult life playing video games, I've always felt like the inside of the plate is dominant. But hearing from the pros, some of their favorite pitches are fastballs inside. And what creates that type of atmosphere? Just a monster mentality, or you see it so much that you force yourself to adjust and get good and it becomes a piece of cake you didn't realize you liked?
There's a lot of nuances in baseball. Several years, the Brewers asked me if I would retire and coach. Like 2014, I was in Double-A. I'm like the oldest guy in Double-A, and one of our assistant GM was like, "You're done playing, right?" I was like, "I don't know, man. I'm actually pretty good." He's like, "You need to retire and be a pitching coach." And I considered it, but the problem is, once you get into the coaching side, you have to do it all over again. You got to go to the bottom and work your way up.
Yeah.
And I had played long enough where for me, it was more about philosophies. Like, I'm not a big mechanics guy. If you want to know your pitching mechanics, go take 30 ground balls at shortstop. That's your arm slot for 90% of humans, and just throw the ball. And your strongest throw over to first base is going to be what it looks like on the mound. And then from then, it's just splitting hairs on, okay, what pitches do you throw? And so to me, I'm about philosophies. Yeah. And when you're talking about, do I throw inside, do I throw outside? And there's so many things. We could unpack hours of what that looks like.
Yeah.
And for me, I would love to speak into that stuff. If I was going to be a coach, I'd love to be in AAA or the big leagues to talk about it. And I see pitchers all the time. I'm like, dude, lock me in a room for an hour with this guy and let me talk philosophies. So it's about reading swings. It's about seeing the bat path on what the hitter has.
It's like
and
playing chess.
Yes, it is. And you will throw a pitch and a guy completely shows you that he's looking for it. And sometimes he completely shows you he's not looking for it. And so then you fall into maybe philosophies you had in the past where you're like, oh, I threw 2 curveballs, so now I'm guaranteed going to throw a fastball.
So did you and Chris ever have any interesting conversations then?
Who's that?
Chris Hook.
Oh, Chris Hook? Oh, yeah. He was my pitch coach in 14. Yeah, he knows he can talk to me when we talk about this kind of stuff.
Sometimes he looks mad coming in there, especially when Freddie's having a rough game. Like he's in the 4th inning with 87 pitches, but he hasn't given up a run. I feel so bad for Freddie.
Yeah,
it's just
Freddie. I think last time out, he really showed that, hey, I don't have to do it all. He needs to so good, and he makes it harder on himself by trying.
Our defense is good. Yeah.
Let the defense play.
Let the defense play.
That was my whole thing. His thing, though, he gives up a lot of fly balls. and gets a lot of strikeouts, and he knows that. And so I think he has maybe one grounded into double play all year, maybe two. So for him, he has to pitch that way, but you get there in fewer pitches. I think that's probably the frustration in those games that's on Hookie's face. But Chris Hook's the man, dude. He pays attention more than anybody. And I felt like that is what I did. I'd sit in the bullpen and I would see at bat after at bat for these guys. And even though I'm seeing a teammate face these hitters, in my mind, I'm going, how's my stuff going to match up with this guy? And then you start seeing, what is this guy doing? Quick example, there's a guy named Orlando Calixte. He was I think a switch hitter. No, he was just a righty for the Omaha Storm Chasers, AAA for the Royals. I know this is very random. There's a point.
I love it.
There's a point coming.
Dude. You're doing wonderful. You're doing wonderful.
This dude's batting he's batting ninth, and he's batting like 160.
Yeah.
And we're in the bullpen, and everybody's just kicking it. But first at bat, this dude cranks the ball opposite field down the line. And I was like, dang, man, you can tell as a pitcher, if you see enough, how a guy hits a ball. He doesn't just accidentally hit it that way. Yeah. You can tell when a guy's on purpose trying to hit the ball that way. And I was like, wow. Then you have to decipher, is that his approach, or did he just see something in the at-bat where he thought the pitcher's going to go away? So I was watching his second at-bat, and sure enough, same thing, hits a ball to right field. I think only gets a single. And so I started telling guys in the bullpen, hey, watch out for Calixte. I was like, he's got a couple of knocks to the right side. Looks like he's trying to let the ball get deep. Looks like his approach is going to right field. Sure enough, one of our guys goes out there. He throws a pitch away, and this dude hits a rocket. I think gets a double. So this guy's already got 3 hits from the 9-hole, but he was batting 160. So you're like, a lot of times you get into a game, you look at the scoreboard, and you're like, what's this guy's average? Oh, I got this guy out, right?
Yeah.
Oh, he's batting 200. Oh, this guy, I'll go right after him. Yeah. But something was different. They can make adjustments. Hitters are allowed to do that. Pitchers need to be wise. So anyway, by the time I got out on the field, I'm facing this guy in the later innings, probably a blowout. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And the catcher's calling for stuff away, which was normally what I would do. I would probably throw this guy a curveball away, maybe start him off with a fastball away. But I'd seen too much. I was noticing things. I was paying attention. This is just like what Chris Hook does. He's always been that way, even coaching in the minor leagues. And so I was like, I had to shake the catcher off. No, I know this is a little different from what I'm doing, but I've been paying attention. We go inside, end up getting a jam job ground ball. So this is the kind of nuances when it comes to philosophy, that it's from at bat to at bat. It's from game to game, and you have to be paying attention. Some of the best pitchers in the world see the game for what it is. These guys can step off the mound and not only see the hard focus on what they're trying to do, execute a pitch, but then they have the soft focus to be like, what's the situation? Oh, man on third, less than 2 outs. Who's at the plate? Is it an older guy? If it's an older guy, this dude's going to try to hit a sac fly. If it's a younger guy, this guy's trying to just get the run in. He's probably going to ground ball to third. So if you have a younger guy up, maybe throw something soft. He rolls over to third base, and then you can get the guy out at home, or maybe keep the guy at third base. So there's so many nuances, and it changes from situation. The scoreboard will dictate a lot, but this is the stuff that just made me super paranoid over my career, where you just can't turn it off, man. Your brain is just wired that way, and I blame baseball for that.
Are you ever up in the booth and you see a pitch coming, and you're like, you see the count, and you're like, in your head, you're not saying it obviously live on air, but you're like, that was the right pitch. That was the right pitch.
I'll say that on air.
You can see
that was the right pitch. And sometimes I wasn't trying to Tony Romo it early on in my career. No. I called a lot of pitches early, and I was like, ooh, this is fun. So I tried to do it a lot. And then their producers were like, can you peel back on that? Like, I wasn't always getting it right. Yeah. But the other day, Tobias Myers was pitching at Wrigley. And I thought,
by the way, I've loving watching.
Dude, he's amazing. He's amazing. He's legit.
His work ethic when he's not on the mound is just, it's oh my God, he's gonna be something. Yeah, we're gonna be paying him a lot of money soon.
Yeah, I get to travel with the team. I see him interact, and I see what he does on the field. And on game days, he's like sitting in the dugout with his headphones on, watching the other team take batting practice. That is a dying art, by the way.
I was gonna ask that soon. Yeah,
dude, he is poised for this. Like, he was ready. I don't know where, I didn't see his background coming into this, but if this is what it looked like, he was ready. when
Yeah,
he
well,
got
it was
his
a
opportunity.
Florida dog, and I remember an interview with Pat Murphy. He had said they weren't expecting nothing from Tobias this
Yeah.
season or maybe next season, but injuries gave him an opportunity, and then he came up and he took that opportunity, and he goes, "This is now mine." And the 5 days in between his pitches, he's breathing baseball, eating baseball, and something you mentioned, headphones with the tablet. To add on to your philosophy, and I don't want to break off from the Tobias story you're about to tell, but to add on to your philosophy, is it easier today to get lost because of the significant information at hand with the tablets and the videos, or do you think it's easier to stay within yourself because of the information at hand?
I think you can fall into it.
Yeah.
I guess that goes back to my example of you can throw everything correctly, have the right scouting report, throw it in the right spot, and the guy break his bat and a couple runs score. And you don't really get prepared for that. That is where pitching comes into play. Like you can have all the analytics and you can execute perfectly, it not go your way. And then you're like, now do I trust the analytics or what's going on? So you can definitely get lost in that. I think that's what the coaching staff does really well is kind of balance that, especially with Pat Murphy at the helm. He's not lost on analytics, but at the same time, he's got the gut test.
It's like watching 90s baseball, if I'm being honest with you.
He has seen so much baseball, and he knows what it's supposed to look like. And honestly, if you're looking at good baseball, you're looking at good baseball, and you can tell when it's not. So he's at a job title where he's allowed to address when baseball doesn't look like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
But real quick, I'll finish on Tobias Myers. So I'm in the booth, and he gets a 0-2. He gets a left-handed batter, throws changeup. Changeup was filthy, down in the zone.
Yeah.
Guy had no chance. Then he throws a heater up, and it's like the upper third. It wasn't like at the very top of the zone. It was just upper third.
Yeah.
Guy swings through it, and in my mind, I'm going, next pitch has got to be 6 inches above the zone. For me, I'm like, he just climbed the ladder. He went changeup and fastball at the top, and I'm like, climb that ladder, baby. And I was like, man, fastball up would look really good right here. And the reason I said that is because on the flip side of that, as a pitcher, when you're on the mound, and you get in a situation like that where you're like, ooh, I just threw a nasty changeup, and ooh, I just threw a nasty fastball. Suddenly you're like, I have to throw another nasty pitch. And if it's a nasty pitch that's going to be one you've already thrown, it's hard to duplicate another one. So there's been times where if I throw a really good curveball, it's the best one I've thrown all night, and then a guy calls a curveball the next pitch, I'm like, nope, I'm not throwing it. He just saw the best one I could possibly throw out of my hand. This next one is not going to be
even close to that.
I'm like, we've done that. We've done it. Our work. That curveball is in his mind. That batter saw Myers' changeup. It was in his mind. And he's probably thinking, oh, it's going to be a changeup down. Thought fastball would have played. My baseball instinct was like fastball up right here. It's not what was thrown. In fact, he threw a changeup that spiked it and ended up kicking off, and the guy scored from third on the wild pitch. And I'm not picking on him, but that's sometimes you get so lost in the cat mouse game that you don't really get to see the game for what it is and what maybe the batter's telling you.
Sometimes it's as simple as three straight fastballs high in the zone because of what you've already showed him at previous at bats.
Was the changeup the wrong pitch? No, if he locates it down. But there's even but I'm looking at it as if you've already thrown these perfect pitches, you have to go something different. Unless you have that impeccable command. Greg Maddux, he can sit there and do whatever he wants to do. And
I was just watching a video about a 2-seamer he threw one day.
Old Maddux and Glavine, both of them. It was like an art just painting the zone. It was.
They also got 4 inches off either side.
That's true. Charles and I didn't want to bring it up, but that might have been the craziest strike zone ever.
So, and in lieu of bringing it up, I do have type of a hybrid question. As a player on the mound running into an umpire you can't control, how easy is it to just realize, hey, I have to stay away from that side of the plate? Or do you keep going back there hoping things change? It's always been a question in my mind. Had I continued, how would I deal with a terrible umpire? And I don't mean terrible because they're not terrible. They're 90 to 92%. Maybe a really bad game gets them at 89%.
It's human error. It's part of the game. We all know this.
Yeah, I've yelled at plenty of umpires. I've had to apologize to plenty of umpires. Stu Sherwater, who's in the big leagues now, he was in the minor leagues in AAA for several years, and
you got to see him a lot.
I got to yell at him a lot. And he's a big guy too, and so there's times I get heated. Especially when I got older, when I knew I was so aware of the strike zone. I felt like I was maybe allowed to yell more, and I
Right.
don't encourage that. Don't tell your
No. Of
kids
course.
yell at the umpire. In fact,
No.
parents, you don't yell at the umpire. Let
Yeah,
the umpire
yeah.
do his job.
Set the example.
Yes, they're working hard. As soon as an umpire would show me they're not working hard, that's when I would get livid. But either way, I saw Stu a couple years ago, and I apologized at American Family Field. He was laughing about it.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, I don't remember. I just let that stuff slide. I was like, either way, I feel really bad now that I see you in person and I'm not on the mound.
And kudos to them too for understanding that athletes are running in the heat of the moment.
They're heated,
100% of the
They're
time.
heated.
Yeah. So
They are. You're taught to compete, and when you feel like you've done your job and you don't get the reward, you feel cheated in the moment.
Yeah.
And it's hard to explain. And when you're standing on that mound, that perspective is different than sitting in the stands. It's different than sitting in the dugout. It's different than sitting in the broadcast booth. And it doesn't make any sense now, but when you're on the mound, it makes total sense in real time.
Yeah.
And when you, like I talked about being able to see the game in the moment, great example, Justin Steele yesterday, he got a pitch up and away out of the zone, fastball, probably 2 inches off the plate, up and away, bad pitch. Shouldn't have been a strike. Got the call. Where do you think the exact next pitch was?
the exact same spot.
Same spot.
Yeah.
Good pitchers will see that and just capitalize on it. Whatever their plan was or whatever they were trying to do, as soon as they get like a spot
Right.
that they didn't expect, they're like, okay, let's just do that. And
Because
just do it until it's not there anymore.
Because to your point, it doesn't seem like very often the strike zone is inconsistent everywhere. At times it just seems, hey, the upper portion of the plate, that's a no-go
Sure.
zone today.
It's usually expanded, usually not necessarily
Yeah.
it's a spot. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes. And that square on the TV really F's with people. It really does.
Yeah,
I mean, because it's not a guarantee, right?
When that square,
No.
came, I remember we just picked up CC Sabathia, which,
Yep.
sorry, I'm not trying to name drop, but I'd
No,
never.
you're good.
Oh, you're
Ryan Braun and shit. Yeah.
I love Sabathia. I've seen him over the years now on the
Yeah.
other side. Now that we're both done, fantastic ambassador for the game. Works for the Yankees, also works for MLB. That's the kind of guy that you
A
want
wonderful human being
as
from
a
what I've heard.
ambassador for the game. You want him next to the commissioner. So he was talking about that little square, and I just took it as gospel. I was like, oh, the square, that's the strike zone. And he was like,
Yeah.
he was breaking it down. He's like, dude, it matters where the camera is. It matters so many things. So he's like, you can't go by that. Now, it's pretty accurate.
It's pretty accurate. Yeah.
But at the same time, they even have in the rule book the exact percentages on height. So if you have Aaron Judge and you have Jose Altuve, obviously the strike zone's different, and it goes by percentages of body. So his strike zone may be at the kneecap, and it may go up to the top of the letters. And the reason is because all body types are different, but they're going by percentages. So are they really getting that right in real time? Who knows? But at the same time, the umpire should have a good idea. And until they get it completely right to do robot umpires, and I'm all for the robot umpires.
So is Charles. Charles is the huge advocate for
I
this.
think they should robotic the zone, but here's what I think they should do. They should figure out a foolproof plan where that's perfect, and then just literally don't tell anybody about it. Just let the umpire have an earpiece, and if the ball goes across the plate, the earpiece says strike, and then he says strike. And then nobody has to know, and nobody will ever argue because they'll know it's perfect. Everything outside of that is stupid. The challenging thing is stupid. Oh, I'm going to challenge that pitch.
You put a pitch clock to shorten the game. And now you're going to implement all of these other things that is basically going to null and void the pitch clock. It's really weird.
The problem is MLB will put in a rule, and it causes a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And to change the ripple or stop the ripple, they throw in a larger rock. like thinking that's going to do it. Great example, a couple springs ago when they started implementing this clock, leave it to Max Scherzer to just point out all the flaws. They're like, this is the pitch clock. And I know this because they have all these meetings in spring training. They have the MLB, they have the umpires meeting, they have nutritional meetings. Dude, spring training, the first 2 weeks is just meetings.
Death by PowerPoint.
And they're like, all right, we're going to implement this. And I guarantee you Scherzer's like pointing out, because this is all you do as a professional athlete, especially in baseball. Get the rules and then try to exploit them to the point where it favors you. And that's what Max Scherzer was doing. He was off the mound, and when a batter would get in the box, they had to be there by a certain time. So he would just wait. And then he'd go walk up on the mound, get the sign, and start throwing. It was awkward. Or he wouldn't get off the mound. He'd catch the ball and just stand on the mound, and right when the batter would step in the box, he would quick pitch. And the umpire's like, okay. So then the rule came in, you have to acknowledge the hitter.
You have to
it's like,
acknowledge the hitter.
so in theory, they're trying to speed things up. They're trying to get it right, and they're always going to be fought back with the players exploiting the rules. So for me, if they get that automated strike zone, get it and don't tell anybody about it.
Yeah. I agree with you there.
Fantastic idea to do that.
Of course, they would tell the MLB Players Association. The players would know it. The umpires would know it. The fans could speculate on it. But don't make it a spectacle. I wish, hey, they're going to challenge the call. Just have somebody waiting with the TVs where they go, hey, he was out. And then the umpire's like, we're going to challenge the call. He was out. Yeah, and maybe maybe cut out the middleman.
Right.
Maybe Pat Murphy walks out and goes, hey, was that obstruction at second base? Because it really looked like Dansby Swanson put his foot directly in front of Blake Perkins' hand. Yeah. And then somebody in New York can be like, yeah, he's right. It was obstruction. He can be like, yeah, you're right. It was obstruction. Change it. Took 30 seconds as opposed to let's make it a whole spectacle. They're trying to speed the game up, but then they don't put in these rules that could speed the game up.
Speaking of speeding the game up,
go ahead.
What about the extra innings rule? The ghost runner at second base, which is now an actual runner at second base. This is something we played in kickball, something we played in t-ball, and now we actually have it in the majors. How do players actually feel about that rule? Does it change their feelings towards the game, or they like it because it speeds the game up?
I haven't seen a 20-inning game since.
We did see like a 16-inning game the other day, I believe.
Yeah. Well, the Brewers got a 12-inning one in. I thought that was fantastic.
Yeah. So number one, I'm not an expert. This is just
that's all right. Yeah.
Opinion,
just opinions. Yeah.
Experience of being stuck in the baseball life, living it. Yeah. So that rule came about. I forgot what year it was. Maybe 2016 in AAA. Yeah. And I remember I may have been the guy on the mound the first time. I don't want to say all of pro ball, but probably all of AAA. I was the first guy that pitched with an actual ghost runner at second base. Yeah. And it was awkward. I entered the game, and it's different when you enter a game in the middle of an inning as opposed to starting the inning. It's hard to explain the rhythm. I did it hundreds of times. So I run into this game to begin the inning, and I'm looking, and there's just some dude standing on second base. He's just standing
I didn't
there.
pitch to this guy.
And he's standing there watching all of my pitches, and I'm like, this is awkward. Right? Like it's not like having a base runner that's on base, because if you come into a game and there's base runner on base, it's a little different. I don't know why. Hard to explain. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I get my pitches done. He actually has to move so the catcher can throw it down to second base before we start the inning. So that was even strange. I'm like, this is weird. I like to sometimes tell my infielders a little something like, hey, make sure you look out for this or whatever. But that guy's just standing there. So I'm like, this is weird. So yeah, it was a little bit of strange. So number one, I like it. Yeah. But again, here's the ripple effect that comes from that rule. If you look at a lot of big numbers for guys that get 3,000 hits, or if you look for guys that have a bunch of innings or strikeouts, they played more innings per game back in the day than they're going to be playing in the future.
Okay.
Yeah. Nolan Ryan probably, Nolan Ryan's probably a bad example. Dennis Eckersley probably pitched in the 15th inning. And so he has a chance to get more strikeouts over a couple of innings in the 15th inning than a game that nowadays stops it in the 10th or the 11th.
Yeah, so it's very rare to see him go past 12.
Yep, less at bats, less innings pitched. So when you start looking 10, 15 years down the road, if this continues, you're going to see guys' numbers drop. And so the overall effect in the next generation is going to be the Hall of Fame. You're going to be like, how come guys don't have they're not going to have the at-bats. Those extra 10 or 15 at-bats a year to somebody that's playing 15 years in the big leagues, suddenly you're like, this guy has 400 less at-bats or whatever. There's some minor implications that are going to play a big role later. But I wish, this is just my personal opinion, on that ghost runner at second base, they should do it in the 11th inning. Yeah. And my reasoning is there was a game we were playing, I think we were in Round Rock, Texas, playing I don't know if they're the Astros or the Rangers at the time. Yeah. And it was like, we come back, we rally back, whatever it is, score a run, or maybe they did, and the game's tied. Like a dude's run scores, ties the game, and then the next runner's thrown at it home. So the place is going nuts, right? Like people, it's the most exciting game in the world. It's been an exciting game the entire time. That was the 9th inning. And then all of a sudden there's a dude at second base. And you're just like, and so the guy goes out there, next pitch, ground ball, game's over. And you're just like, it sucked the wind out of everything. Yeah. They should, for the drama of the game, they should let the 10th inning play out normal. Yeah. Let that settle. I've seen it in the big leagues a couple times where it's like the 40,000 people are screaming. It's almost not even died down yet. And then suddenly one pitch later, the game's over. So like the biggest moment in the game, 2 minutes and 45 seconds later, the game's completely changed and it's over. And you're going, what just happened? So I wish they would use the 10th to be normal and then bring the Ghost Runner at the other. Hey, listen, on the broadcast side, I love it.
I bet. Hey, listen, Tim, we're approaching the clock. I want to end with a couple questions, and maybe Patrick has one. My personal favorite questions are always food. The two questions: growing up as a kid, where was your favorite food spot? Where was that? Like your parents would come and go, get in the car, we're headed to. Where'd they take you? Or if maybe it was a meal that your mother made or grandma or somebody, just your favorite childhood meal.
I remember as a kid, we'd go to Ponderosa.
I love Ponderosa. I love Ponderosa.
Yeah, parents had 3 boys that were bottomless pits. That's a good thing.
Yeah.
No, I've always loved Taco Bell. Always
Taco Bell.
Always will. I got a Taco Bell softball jersey behind me over here. So
Nice.
probably wear that later.
So the second food question, then, you've been to many ballparks now at this point, and you have seen the food evolve growing up. Where is your food spot? Where are you most excited? And we love the Brewers. I love the Brewers food. I'll be there Saturday, by the way. Just look for the beard. You'll see me if you're there.
Saturday. Yeah, I'll be there. Come say hi, and I'll be in Nellie's corner.
Right in field?
Yeah.
Yeah, I will. Absolutely. I'll come say hi. But what's your favorite food spot in the ballparks right now?
Ooh, favorite food spot. So they have a Venezuelan food. They have arepas at the 3rd Street Market.
Yeah.
Annex. I played baseball and winter ball in Venezuela.
Yeah.
Fantastic food. That's the one thing. Besides the level of play. The level of play was awesome. But my second favorite thing about Venezuela was the food was, oh man, I still have dreams about it. But for me, honestly, it's just a good old hot dog. Just a good. It makes me. I get in the ballpark and my first thought is, where can I find a hot dog? That's I don't know why.
Same way.
I had
my
two
wife's
yesterday.
the same way.
I had 2 Chicago dogs in the press box yesterday. I couldn't help it. The game got over. Brewers won by 1.
That was actually going to be my question.
Save, and I was just like, yes, I'm going to go eat 2 hot dogs.
Do you remember last year when you guys had the competition, the hot dog eating competition?
That was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, that was a few years back. You guys had the hot dog eating competition. I think Sophia was
heated. By the way, he only ate 2.
That's what they kept saying. I was like, is it rigged? He's not eating at all. Like, he's not
Dude,
eating
I
any.
crushed 6.5, I think. Maybe I got 7. I'm not sure, but
yeah, Sophia would pan over and you'd be eating it, and Mario, no hot dogs.
All right, so we're all on the same page here.
Same page, yeah. He likes the hot dogs. All right.
Listen, Tim, I can't thank you enough for your time, and don't ever think that you are not a good podcaster, because you did absolutely fantastic for us. Your stories were phenomenal. We learned so much about you.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you. I can't wait to come see you Saturday. I'll swing in and say hello. That'll be very exciting.
Try to have a trinket. I'll have a sticker ready for you.
Oh, that'll be.
I like to give away. You talk about food, like I got like hot dogs at a ball game. I always loved getting something free at the game, whether it was like one of those mini ice cream helmets or what. So I always have like buttons or pins or stickers or magnets down at the broadcast desk, and kids will come up, and I don't know. I like giving away stuff. So
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'll bring one of my nephews with me. We've got a whole family thing coming. He'll be really excited about that. I appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you so much.
And thank you so much for being here, man. Get comfortable. I know you've had that coffee. You probably got to run to the restroom. So
I'm going to head to go get 2 more cups. That's what I'm going to do.
Double fist in the cups, yeah.
And the next time you see your family, give them all the love from us. For our listeners out there, our subscribers, our commenters, our sharers, we appreciate you so much. We thank you so much. The world is definitively a better place with you in it, and we love you more.